Good morning students, welcome you all for online classes. Today we will discuss the topic on freshness. So what do you mean by freshness? Key freshness. A key is a fresh from the viewpoint of one party if it can be guaranteed to be new as opposed to possibly an old key being reused through actions of either an adversary or authorized party. Freshness mechanisms are techniques that can be used to provide assurance that a given message is new, in the sense that it is not a replay of message sent at a previous time. For example, two persons are communicating with each other, okay, and he sent one message that is hi in time 1 o'clock, okay, and this message will going to reach to another person that is B, and he will going to check whether this message is generated recently or previously, okay. Based on the timestamp, he will going to assure that this message is now only generated. So this is what we can call freshness. The main threat that such mechanisms are deployed against capture of message by an adversary who then later replays it at some advantageous time. Particularly important in provision of security services that are time relevant, of which one of the most important is entity authentication here. There are three common types of freshness mechanism. One is clock based mechanisms. So these clock based mechanisms it's a process that relies on the generation of some data that identifies the time that the data was created. This is sometimes referred to as time stamp. For example, timestamp. This is a timestamp, okay. Now the timestamp is generated. This is a machine readable form. So if I want to convert into human readable form, this is human readable form, okay. It is generated in what 4 minutes ago, and this is what human date to time stamp. A few seconds ago. So based on this time stamp, we can easily find out that it's a fresh mechanism, okay. This requires the existence of a clock upon which both the creator of the data and anyone checking the data can rely based on the time stamp. For example, Alice and Bob both have such a clock, and that Alice includes the time on the clock when she sends a message to Bob. When Bob receives the message, he checks the time on his clock, and if it is matches Alice's timestamp, then accept the message as a fresh. Alice wants to send a message to Bob, right? Alice will generate timestamp, okay, and message. Then Bob After receiving a Bob will going to evaluate, that is time, which time she has sent. If this time is fresh, means recently, then Bob will accept this message. Otherwise, Bob will not going to accept the message, because attacker will hack this message and send two different messages to Bob. In that case, what will happen? Time will become delay, right? With that delay, Bob will obviously come to know that this message is not from Alice. So obviously he will not going to receive that message. So this is what timestamp mechanism of freshness. And it is a natural solution. However, they come with poor potential implementation of problems. First one is existence of clocks. Alice and Bob must have a clocks for many devices such as personal computers and mobile phones. This is a quite reasonable. Okay, it may not be so reasonable for other devices such as certain types of smart tokens. We will discuss later about these smart tokens. Okay, see here, key ID and key remote ID and key prom, me and a timestamp. This is what timestamp, right? And a received timestamp and your message. Based on this, we can say existence of clocks. Synchronization. Alice and Bob's clocks need to be reading the same time, isn't it? If Alice has the time 1 o'clock and Bob has the time 2 o'clock, obviously we cannot guarantee that message is generated at the same time, but Bob receiving that message after 2 o'clock, because his time is telling 2 o'clock. So that's why what we can say, synchronization need to be reading the same time or sufficiently close to the same time. Alice has the 1 o'clock, has the time 1 o'clock, and similarly Bob also has the time 1 o'clock. The clocks on the two devices are unlikely to be perfectly synchronized, since clocks typically suffers from clock drift. Clock drift means it may be fast clock, perfect or slow clock. Okay, if both timings didn't match, at that time the clock will become what? Suffers from clock drift. Clock drift means what? Past clock or perfect past time or perfect time or slow time. Okay, this is what clock drift. And third point is communication delay. It is inevitable that there will be some degree of communication delay between Alice sending and Bob receiving message. And integrity of clock based data requires some kind of assurance that the timestamp received from Alice is correct. This can be provided by conveniential cryptographic means. For example, using a MAC, message authentication code, or digital signature, assurance can only be provided when Bob has access to the cryptographic key required to verify the timestamp. This is what authentication based on MAC or digital signature. These are our 4 implementations comes under the freshness. And the second method one is sequence number. In applications where clock based mechanisms are not appropriate, an alternative mechanism is to use logical time. Logical time maintains the order in which message or sessions occur and is normally instantiated by counter or sequence number. It is overcome to clock based mechanism. Instead of using that clock or timestamp, we'll go for sequence number. An example: Alice and Bob regularly communicate with one another and wish to ensure that messages that they exchange are fresh. Alice can do this by maintaining two sequence numbers for communicating with Bob, which are counters denoted by NAB, NBA. Means number Alice to Bob, number Bob to Alice. Sequence number will going to generate. Alice uses a sequence number, that is Alice to Bob, as a counter for a message that she sends to Bob, and sequence number, that is B to A, means Bob to Alice, as a counter message that she receives from Bob. Both sequence number will work in the same way. For example, Alice and Bob want to communicate. Okay, Alice will send a sequence number to Bob. Okay, first Alice will contact the server. This is what we can call server. Alice and Bob with sequence number for NA. Then second one is server will respond to Alice with the help of this sequence number. Then Alice will send this sequence number to Bob. Bob will going to verify this Alice number and send to message. Oh, it is a fresh message. So in this way, sequence number will going to work. When Alice sends a message to Bob, in this situation, what will happen? Alice looks up her database to find the latest value of the sequence number, that is NAB. N is a sequence number. A means Alice, to whom she will going to send a message, that is Bob. So NAB. At this time moment, NAB is equal to T of new, means time new. Okay. Alice sends her message to Bob along with the latest sequence number value, which is T new. Suppose this is Alice and this one is Bob. Okay, she will send some sequence number, that is assume 2. Okay, this is called what we can call T new, means time new. Alice increments the sequence number NAB by 1, that is T new plus 1, because she needs to send a message, right? So 2 plus 1, what will happen? Sequence number is 3. This updated value will be the sequence number that she uses next time that she sends a message to Bob. Here, message will going to reach the Bob. In Bob's side, when he receives a message, compares the sequence number T new sent by the Alice with the most recent value of the sequence number NAB on his database. So Alice and Bob having their database, right? And from Alice has the value that is 2 and she added by 1, that is 3. We'll go to Bob database. Bob will recently check, that is sequence number 3 or 2. This NAB is equal to told, that is a message. Okay, if T of new greater than told, then Bob accepts the latest message. Okay, suppose told is what told is 2, because from Ali's database value is 2 and from Bob database is what 2. So she added one right, that is 3. 3 greater than 2 means it is authentication, means authorized person. Bob accepts the latest message as a fresh and he updates his stored value NAB from told to new. If this message 3 in Bob has the message is what 2, so it is less than or equal to Bob value, then Bob simply reject the latest message because it is not come from Ali's side. Okay, this is what sequence number. Sequence numbers address the 4 concerns that are raised with clock based mechanisms: existence of clocks, synchronization and communication delays. Existence of clocks: the communicating parties no longer require clocks. Synchronization: in order to stay synchronized, communicating parties need to maintain a database of the latest sequence numbers. And communication delays: these only apply if messages are sent so frequently that there is a chance that 2 messages arrive at the destination in the reverse order to which they were sent. And the fourth one is what? Integrity of sequence number. An attacker who can freely manipulate sequence numbers can cause various problems in any protocol that relies on them. Thus, sequence numbers should have some level of cryptographic integrity protection when they are sent. Another one is nonce based mechanism. So we have studied clock based, and another one is sequence number, and third one is nonce based mechanisms. One problem that it is shared by the both clock based mechanism and sequence number is the need for some integrated infrastructure. This problem solved using a mechanism called nonce based mechanism. So let's see what I mean by this nonce based mechanism. Their only a requirement is the ability to generate nonce, literally numbers used only once, which are randomly generated numbers from one of use. For example, Bob and Alice. Bob tells Alice he has a message to send her, okay, requesting to Alice, and Alice generated random numbers, means nonce, encrypts it with Bob's public key and sends it to him. Bob decrypts Alice's nonce with his private key. He then binds the together by encryption with Alice's public key, the nonce and the message to Alice, and sends the result to Alice. So here what will happen? Alice and Bob share the nonce. Nonce is nothing but random number only. For example, 120. If Alice sends to message to Bob, Bob will verify this nonce and with public key or his private key. So based on that it will match, then this nonce will automatically generated while transferring a message from one person to another person. Okay. The general principle is that Alice generates a nonce at some stage in a communication session, or you can call protocol. Protocol means what? A set of rules and a set of standard rules. If Alice receives a subsequent message that contains this nonce, then Alice has assurance that the new message is fresh. Where by fresh we mean that the received message must have been created after the nonce was generated. The comparison of the freshness mechanisms, that is clock based and sequence number and nonce based. Synchronization is needed. In clock based, yes, in sequence number is also, but in nonce based, no, it's not required. Communication delays, window needed and this window needed and window needed. Integrity required. Here in clock based, integrity is must. It supports sequence number also, and nonce will not going to support, means not required. Minimum passes needed. Here 1 but nonce required 2 pass, because he receives that message and after he wants to guarantee that message, so 2 pass is required. Special requirements in clock based, we can use clock, and sequence number we can use sequence database, and here we can use random generators. If you have any doubts regarding these concepts, please ask me. Thank you.